Thank you so much for listening to the KJNA podcast. You can email us at kjnapodcast@gmail.com.
Give us a call or text or leave us a message at 858-848-KJNA. That's 5562.
You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok, Blue Sky, and YouTube at KJNA Podcast.
Don't forget, we have 6 hours of bonus content over on our Patreon, patreon.com/KJNA Podcast. And if you want to donate to us, find us at buymeacoffee.com/KJNA Podcast.
Thank you so much for listening.
Love you.
In case it gets knocked off or something like that. Yeah, sure.
Stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I do all the editing and stuff later. We got something. I think we got something at 8. Sorry, you're a little late. We've been talking for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, we were talking.
I'm sorry. That,
it's all good. Yeah, it's okay.
That Frank and Kevin have already been doing their thing, and my butt is like super fucking late.
Look, I was expecting to come in and wait for everybody, and he was here. So we started talking, and I was like, okay, this is getting
what do
juicy.
you expect
Let
from
me
a
just
person
record.
who has been in law enforcement since like 2011? This man is like, as soon as I say 2011 and or hey 7 o'clock, this man's like 15 to 30 minutes early.
You pegged me pretty good. That's it.
I mean, that's how I am with
that is-
everything, though. I don't
Exactly.
like being untapped.
If you're not on time, you're late.
You're late. That's
So
right.
obviously, I am super fucking late. That's my fault.
It's okay.
But,
Well,
yeah,
they say that a success in life is, about half the success in life is showing up. So you showed up, Jay, and that's all that matters right now. You showed up, so that's it.
Exactly. So,
Okay, so, I'm sorry. I was just going to let you know, Frank, we usually don't do an intro when we have a guest.
I'm all good with that. Yeah, sure.
And,
Okay.
I mean, I'm probably just going to keep all the shit that we were talking about beforehand in.
perfectly
Okay.
fine.
But I waited to ask him about the reason he's here, Jay, until you got here.
All right. So, Frank, I know that you've been in law enforcement since 2011, and you recently, as of 2024, joined John E. Reid and Associates. So, with that being known by our audience, us, you, what's good?
Well, everything is good my way. Everything is good. Whenever I signed in here, I was worried about the internet connection in the hotel, but it looks like everything's going good. So I'm going to thank the technology gods for that. Thank you so much for this wonderful connection right now. It's like,
Right,
that's
'cause,
it's working good.
Yeah, let's be honest. 9 times out of 10, when you're out of town, away from your normal connection, it is hard.
That's right.
To get
That is right.
anything
Yes,
that
it is.
simple. So,
Well,
What?
everything is good with me. Yes. So I work for John E. Reid and Associates. We're a private company, and we offer training in the fields of interviewing and interrogation. We offer it if you work in the private sector, if you are a human resource person. Really, anybody can sign up for our seminars. A large focus of a lot of our seminars, a lot of our students are law enforcement, former law enforcement, military, some intel folks out there, as well as a lot of private investigators and folks in the private field. What we focus on is discovering what the truth is through a conversation with somebody. And I can explain what our methodology is in a little bit. But the reason why I reached out to you in this podcast is because John Reid and Associates, we are launching our very first podcast ever. It's going to launch Halloween of this year on October 31st, and it's called Read on the Record. And if you're listeners, if there's a link tree somewhere, you will find us on Spotify, YouTube, you'll find us on Apple, and wherever your favorite podcasting platforms are held. And the reason why we wanted to start a podcast at John Reid and Associates is we really want to bring the, it's almost like an occult, esoteric world of interrogations. And whenever you say the word interrogation, you probably have a bunch of imagery that's coming to mind. a darkened room and like a lamp on top of you and like a big burly person, standing shadowy in the corner, yelling, shouting, a bunch of negative connotations with interrogations. But what we wanted to do was we wanted to kind of just shed a light and let folks know, hey, this isn't a secret. There's nothing, there's not like a secret initiation and there's like a knock that you have to do to learn about interviews and interrogations. All it is it's a type of philosophy of human interaction. You sit down and you talk to someone. You determine whether or not they're being truthful with you, whether or not they're being deceptive with you, and you're just kind of asking questions. And if an interrogation is warranted, then, and we can talk about the differences between the two. But the purpose of the podcast is to bring what we do as a company to more of a broad general public. We're trying to break out of the shell of the military, law enforcement, and the human resourcey, kind of world, just so that the broad public understands what we do as a business practice. And I can talk about our core principles that's going to ensure, that an interview and interrogation is ethical, professional, legal, and everyone's rights are going to be safeguarded. The best practices of what we teach here at John Reid and Associates. And also, we wanted to kind of start a podcast, me and the co-host named Dan Malloy. Dan Malloy has been with John Reid and Associates since the 1970s, decades of experience under his belt. He's done literally thousands of interrogations, and he's managed to arrive at the truth through confessions that were substantiated by dependent and independent evidence. And he's my co-host. Not only do we want to talk about what we do, but we want to respond to some of the critics who are critical of the Reid technique. And we're not going to respond in like a whatever podcast hostile kind of way with it.
Yeah.
We want to honestly listen to people who are critical of interviews and interrogations in general. Listen to what they have to say, and then just allow us the space to respond to them in a spirit and heart of charity and openness, and really what we do at our company, which is to arrive at the truth.
Okay. So
All right.
your company's actually, they pay you to like come and interrogate people for law enforcement, or is it?
So,
I'm
so
curious.
Oh yeah, so we have a couple of divisions at our company. We have a research division, a seminar division. We had an investigative division. We have certain contracts out there with either a private company or law enforcement, and they can send a Reid instructor to conduct an interview and an interrogation for them if they request it. But that's more of in our investigative capacity. Right now, the current model of John Reid and Associates is sending our instructors out and teaching them the Reid technique. Now, in order to become an instructor for us, the number one thing that we look for is video evidence that you know how to do an interview and interrogation according to our protocol. In order for me to get hired at John Reid and Associates, I had to submit several videos to them over time where they can assess whether or not I know what I'm doing, because this is not a company where you can have an academic knowledge of interviews and interrogations where you've studied it in a laboratory kind of setting. They look for real world experience, and I can talk about where I got the experience a little, later on in the show if you would like to hear it. But I took my experience proof, that I can actually do it. And I actually use most of my interviews and interrogations that I conducted in the past in my law enforcement capacity. I use that in my seminars. So the students can see, hey, not only is Frank Shumpert up here acting like he knows what the heck he's talking about, but I actually see him in a video over here, and he's actually doing what he's telling us to do in there. So yes, we'll still do some interviews and interrogations, but right now we're focused on teaching our methodology, law enforcement, military, intel community, as well as the private sector.
Okay.
All right.
What, were you gonna say something, Jay? I'm sorry. I feel like I cut you off.
No, no, you're fine. So let's go back. You have been in law enforcement since 2011,
Yes.
and you joined with John E. Reid in 2024. So, what was your career like within the 13-year span before you joined John E. Reid?
Okay, so I graduated college in 2008 with a degree in history. It took me
Okay.
6 years to earn a bachelor's degree in history because I was working full time and I was trying to fit in my classes wherever I could. And what I found out whenever I graduated in May of 2008, Jay, was guess what? The economy sucked. It absolutely sucked.
Oh
It
yeah.
was terrible out there. Yeah, yeah. And I put in job application after job application. I ended up working for my dad for a couple of years, as well as working at a Red Lobster, just whatever I could do to make ends meet. And eventually, though, the student loans began to knock on my door. They started knocking on my door. And so what I did is I noticed that law enforcement was hiring a local sheriff's department in South Carolina. And so I was able to join up in law enforcement, started off at the sheriff's department. I got my start in law enforcement in 2011. That's when I went through the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy. They put me through it. Whenever I finished, I went into the patrol division. Started off as a patrol officer. I was a patrol officer from 2011 going into about 2013. In 2013, I was promoted to investigator. And when I was promoted to investigator, my training officer at the time, he had a philosophy of life whenever it came to training a new officer on how to do investigations. His theory was, hey, let's take the new investigator, let's throw them into the deep end of the pool, and let's see if they can swim, right? Let's see how good they swim.
Oh yeah.
So this would have been in July or August of 2013. I showed up to work one day, and my training officer says, Shumpert, come here a second. And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, hey, in the rooms over there, we've got about 5 different suspects, okay? And they have all been named by some eyewitnesses of having broken into several cars in a neighborhood. But we only think that about 1 or 2 were actually involved. The other 3 that have been brought in for questioning match the physical description and they were in the area. They agreed to come in and they agreed to speak with law enforcement. So we have them in there. So Frank, I want you to go in there and interview every single one of them and interrogate them and figure out what happened. Now, a little bit of information about me. When I was growing up, I had something, not exactly a rough or traumatic childhood, but there was enough kind of negative things to kind of give me mild social anxiety. And that's something that I really struggled with in my 20s, Jay. And it really kind of lasted with me up until my mid 30s in there. And I would run out of breath whenever I'm talking to someone. So I was now in a situation, A, I'd never been in. And 2, I was with some people who were very hostile towards me. And 3, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So my anxiety went from like a 3, it sprung up to like an 8 in there. I was more nervous than the suspects were. And I go in there and I have a sheet of paper. It's the Miranda form. And I go in there, I sit down, I read them out their Miranda rights. And we had a disclaimer at the very end, knowing and understanding your rights as I have explained them to you, yada, 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 yada. And then the suspect waived his right to Miranda, okay? And he waived it, and he agreed to talk to me. One thing that you're going to realize and I love the look on your face, Jay. I love that skeptical look
Oh
because,
yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, well, that tells me you're an innocent person. Innocent people.
Wait a minute.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, James. I can't say anything about you, James. But innocent people make rational decisions,
Right.
such as if you're called into an interview, and if I read you out your Miranda rights, the rational thing to say is, "Sir, thank you for calling me in, but I want to invoke my right to silence." That is the rational response. But what a lot of people don't know who have never interviewed a criminal, and I'm not talking about some BS offense. I mean like a burglary, a robbery, the R word. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on the podcast. If you do stuff like that, then you cross the event horizon. There's a double trauma that happens, one to your victim and one to you as well, and you suddenly live in a world where 2 plus 2 equals 5. And you start to make irrational judgments about the world around you. And you start to have an increase in anxiety, stress, and worry. So you end up making mistakes, such as waiving your right to silence. That's why for me as a former police officer, body cams, green check. mandatory reading someone out their Miranda rights, green check, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because most of your hardened criminals, they're going to waive their right to Miranda. Your R words, the C M word folks that do stuff to our little people, they will waive Miranda all day long. So the suspect went. Now that's not an indication that you're guilty. An innocent person can waive the right to Miranda too. I don't want to give that impression. But
Right.
kind of back to 2013 at the sheriff's department. I walk in there, okay? I go in, I sit down in front of him, my hands are shaking, he waves his Miranda rights, and I fold it and, I put it on the table. Another big mistake of a first-time interviewer. When people waive their Miranda rights and they sign the form, you want to take it off of the table and put it out of sight. And then I began to talk to him like I'm talking to you because I defaulted back into my natural pattern of behavior. I'm
Mm-hmm.
asking him questions. Where were you? Blah, blah, blah. And the person is talking to me, and he actually began to open up a little bit. And I was developing rapport with the person. Rapport, what we teach here at Reid, is trust, likability, and respect. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I eventually asked him, I say, hey, man, did you break into these cars? And he looked at me and says, no, I didn't break into any cars. And I said, well, I'm not going to lie to you. I've got some ring cam footage. It kind of has you walking down the street carrying some items that was missing out of a car. And his response to me was this. It was, well, look, it's probably someone that looks like me, but you'll find this crazy investigator, but I might have a twin brother out there. I took 23andMe, and then he started talking around in this just crazy circle. This is why a lot of times, hey, why can't the cops just show them the evidence? Because a lot of criminals, you can show them a picture of themselves in the mirror, and they'll say, that's not me. And that's what I got from the suspect. As I'm doing this, my friends, the door opens up. My training officer comes in. He tells me to get out of the seat, and he sits down in front of the suspect. And he treats the suspect very, very insultingly, very disrespectful, called him a liar, said, why are you lying to Frank over there? He got in his face. And the suspect, instead of being afraid, instead of cowering down, suddenly got a big grin on his face because now he was in a position, and I see you grinning, Jay, and I see you paying attention, James, but
Oh yeah.
he
Oh
was
yeah.
now in a power play is what he was. He's in a power play that he was familiar with, right? And he began to yell back at my training officer. My training officer yelled back at him. And then eventually my training officer pulls me aside and he says, Frank, listen, what you have to realize is that there's some people, if they have a rap sheet, and a rap sheet is a criminal history, it's an indication of charges, police reports, and stuff like that for those of you that don't know. If they have a rap sheet, if they've really done something, they're not going to crack. They're not going to tell you what really happened because they know the routine out there. And whenever he told me that, I thought to myself this. I thought, well, it sounds like all this investigative science and intuitive learning, it's just a bunch of BS, right? It's just a bunch of BS. If you just go in there, there's no methodology. And my heart was pounding from the anxiety at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I eventually went back to my supervisor and I told my supervisor, I said, look, I don't know if investigations is right for me. I had fun in the patrol division. I felt like I was helping my community, good community presence. I would check on, our neighborhoods whenever they were at work. I would cruise around, make sure homes weren't getting broken into, and we would patrol the businesses at night. And everyone in general just had a real positive reaction to me. Imagine that. If you are a police officer and you're not an a-hole, in general, the public likes you, okay? I know that's kind of rocket science.
Oh no.
Whoa, mind blown. Like that. But he told me, he says, Frank, before you hang it up, we've got a little bit of money left in our training budget, and I want you to attend this class. And the class is called The Reid Technique of Interviewing and Interrogation. It's 4 days long, and it's being hosted in North Charleston, South Carolina. Sorry about that. Here's something in the background.
No,
That's me.
Okay, all right, good.
Sorry about
So,
that.
in 2014, I attended the very same seminar course that I now teach the law enforcement, military, as well as some private sector people. This is where I learned the bread and butter of interviewing and interrogation. This is where I learned the Reid core principles to ensure that a suspect's rights are always going to be safeguarded, that you always meet the physical needs of the person you're talking to, and that you do everything possible to identify the person who committed the crime, and you separate them out from the person that didn't commit the crime. And I learned about all the safeguards that are built into a proper interview and interrogation. I took that knowledge and I took it back to the sheriff's office. After 2 weeks of deploying the Reid technique of interviewing and interrogation, I was able to ascertain the truth in an investigation that involved the victimization of a child in a really depraved manner I'm not going to repeat. But I was able to run an effective interview on the suspect through evidence I had gathered in my case, the way he had responded to certain questions, was able to isolate him as a possible suspect. And during the interrogation, he offered up an admission and then he offered up a confession as to what the actual accusation was. But what I did is I followed very closely the Reid core principles. One of the Reid core principles that we teach all of our students in our workbook is, sorry about that, is the confession is not the end of the investigation. Investigate confession details in an effort to establish the authenticity of the suspect's statement. He was able to provide to me some evidence that he used in his physical assault. I was able to get a search warrant after his confession, and I recovered the evidence that I didn't know about before that he had indicated in his confession. So I was able to independently verify what he told me was truthful. And that's why we say here at John Reid and Associates that the whole point of an interview and interrogation, of an investigation in general, is to discover what the truth is. Because, let's face it, you could just have someone that's whacked out, and if they know about a case that's getting a lot of news coverage, we've had them show up at law enforcement and say, I did it. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. And then they look at me and they say, are you going to take me to jail? And I'll look at them and go, you need to tell me facts I know about that I'm not going to tell you about.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's start right there. Because you got some weirdos out there. I mean, they'll falsely confess to some weird stuff.
So people just want that three hots on the cot.
Yeah, they just want attention.
That's right. They just want a place to stay. That's right. Yeah.
No, we're not here for attention grabbers. We're here for the actual knowledge that we need.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But to kind of continue on with your original question, I eventually moved on to work for the state government, the Department of Revenue, and so I went from working your regular sheriff's office cases, your robberies, your burglaries, your R words, and R words involving some children, assaults and domestics, and property crimes, and I later went to work at a state level as a white-collar crime investigator. And I've always kind of described that transition as going from 100 miles an hour every day to backing it down to about 45 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. And most of my job working for the state was staring in front of a spreadsheet. It was working up numbers and then submitting the numbers. And really, most of our investigations, I would say 95% of them was finished, by the time it even reached my desk. And so much so that my supervisor at the time said, well, Frank, why do you want to sit down and interview these people if we've pretty much solved the case? We just want your law enforcement people to kind of show up, just go through the motions and work the cases. And what I told him was, I said, look, even if we know that, let's say, Johnny was committing some kind of tax evasion or white-collar crime, even though I can prove that he did it, it doesn't tell me why Johnny was doing that. And I want to hear from Johnny. Really, at this point, if he tells me why he did it, it's not going to hurt him any more than what he already is. So whenever I got to that new position, I wanted to re-emphasize doing interviews and, if necessary, doing an interrogation. And there was a couple of suspects who I would do an interview with. After the interview, I realized, I'm like, wait a minute. The auditors in their factual analysis said that he was putting the fraudulent documents on, but because I sat down and had a human conversation with this person in a structured format like we show here at John Reid and Associates, the truth wasn't that he was guilty and did it. It was that one of his business associates were responsible for filing his returns, but it looked like it was him. So it identified someone who was innocent, who otherwise probably would have caught a charge or something like that, you know. So we don't look at what we do mostly as locking up the bad guy. It's to identify the truthful and innocent as much as trying to go the opposite direction with what I do. And in 2023, I was reached out to by someone at John Reid and Associates, and they said, Frank, we're using your videos in our class. Would you be interested in a job with us? And for your listeners who are unfamiliar with law enforcement, well, I have a lot to say about law enforcement in general. And since I'm not in law enforcement anymore, I can kind of speak a little more freely. But if you want to get a job in law enforcement in Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, or Louisiana, or Missouri, these kind of states right here, more power to you. You will get a ton of experience. You can make rank very quickly, and you can make special units very quickly. But guess where they fall short of? They fall short of the De Niro. They fall short of the Ben Franklins.
No bueno.
I'll tell you off the record what I was making at state government, and your jaw will probably hit the floor. But when I learned what the compensation for one would be working for Reid, I was like, well, this is just way more than what I'm making. But I thought to myself, I was like, not only is the compensation very fair as far as the market value goes, what I'm actually worth. And if you ever wanted lessons from life, one of my lessons I've learned in life is this: if you don't ask for a adequate compensation in law enforcement, if you're law enforcement listening to this, ask your boss for a raise. They've got money squirreled away somewhere. If you can't make your bills, if you're struggling, ask for a raise. If they don't give you a raise, you need to go find another job somewhere in law enforcement. Because I'm trying not to go off the record too much.
That's what we do.
But it was kind of atrocious what we make in law enforcement in South Carolina. So that was one aspect. I mean, I'm not going to come up here and talk about it was green, it was red roses. But the other aspect why I wanted to do it is because what we teach here in this book at John Reid and Associates, this is precious. This is a child of the American justice system. Our company and our founder, Jonathan Edward Reid, it goes all the way back to the 1930s. At Chicago Police Department, where he got his start. We are part of the American justice experience, and we are a force for good in the world, is what we are. That's what our company is. And for me, the Reids never left me. In 2014, I always say that if you look at the stuff that has influenced me the most in my life, it would be Frank Herbert's Dune series. The first 6 books in the series, I read them when I was in middle school. Those shaped the landscape of my thoughts, is what it did. More so than what the Bible ever did. Frank Herbert's books just absolutely shaped me. The second book would be The Tragedy of Great Power Politics by John Mearsheimer. He has since, sorry about that, he has since kind of gone off the rails a little bit with some of his politics, but in his professorship as a historian at the University of Chicago, absolutely first rate, brilliant primary source research. But the other pillar of my life has been the Reid. It's been our books. It's been the workbook. I still have my old red book in 2014. This has been updated to the purple book. This is one of our books. It's the purple book now. I'll kind of show it up. But the original one was red, is the one I had. But those concepts have helped me establish professional networks, communication with people. It helped me defeat my social anxiety, is what it did. I used to have a terrible stammer with my voice in law enforcement. My biggest fear when I started off in law enforcement, friends, it wasn't being shot. It was stammering on the radio. It was locking up, having that vapor lock. Was a big fear of mine. And I had a ton of insecurities, is what I had. But the Reid has just been one of those things that has arrived in my life that's always kind of kept the compass of where I needed to be heading in there. And I absolutely love it. I love our critics. I love people who challenge us. I love people who use our methodology out there. We're all part of the same ecosystem. Nobody wants someone who's guilty of child, you know what, to walk free and victimize someone else. Nobody wants that. We all want the perpetrators to be held accountable, but also we want to do it in a way that honors their dignity as a human being. Whenever we do theme development for child, you know what, and I can't think of a worse crime than that, especially being a father myself, a husband
Yeah.
to a wonderful wife, my wife Angela. And I have a funny story on how I met her too. I can kind of save that a little bit later. But when you do theme development, even a child, you know what, that's a human being. A lot of them have a conscience. They know what they did was wrong, and they're suffering internally. Now, I'm not trying to be like a hug a thug kind of mentality. A lot of folks who take our course, actually, Jay and Kevin, is they say, you know, I thought the read was going to be this intense, yelling, turning off the lights, all this, which we don't teach, okay? I thought it was going to be crazy, but number one, it's boring. But number two, you emphasize so much safeguarding a suspect's rights, treating them with dignity, treating them like they're a human being. And what I have to tell to someone is that when you walk out of an interrogation that was 2 hours long, 3 hours long, or however, going off of an interview that could be 3 hours long, so you're spending a total of 5 hours with somebody, I don't care what that person did, how terrible, morally offensive it is. You're going to walk away thinking, gosh, man, what Billy did was absolutely unforgivable on a moral justice way. I care about my victims, victim first policy all the time. Believe your victims until they're lying. But damn it, I hope he makes it. I hope he makes it into paradise one day. I hope that this child, you know what, finds redemption in this life right here.
Yeah.
And this is a Frank Schumpeter-ism. This is an anecdotal observation I have. I believe that when people give you a truthful, substantiated, independently verified confession, when they finally tell the truth, I think that that helps them to the path of redemption. That's just an anecdotal thing. I don't have any kind of story to back it up. But I have encountered people I have ran an interrogation on who ended up telling me the truth in the form of a confession, and I've encountered them in Lowe's. This is one thing about South Carolina. All law enforcement's local. You know, you can police in a city, you can police in a county, but if you go to Lowe's one day, you may find someone that you arrested last week. And the people I ran an interrogation on, they didn't avoid me. They didn't make awkward eye contact. They would come up to me and they said, "Frank, you know, I probably shouldn't talk about my case." And I'll tell them, "Well, hold up, don't. You have an attorney now, and your attorney says don't talk to me. I'm still a cop. You shouldn't talk to me, buddy." But they say to me, they say, "You know what? No matter what happens, Frank, God, it felt so good to get that off my chest. I know they're going to lock me up. I'm going to see some time because I did this before." But oh my gosh, it felt so good just to tell someone that. It felt
Yeah.
so good to tell that. And think about it. When was and I tell my students this. I tell them, these people who you talk to, it's like running an intervention on. When is the murderer going to get 5 hours of your time? Where he can sit there and just say whatever he wants to say in an interview, share anything that he wants to share. And you're going to sit there in the attitude of an interviewer, non-judgmental, no sarcastic tone, no skeptical tone, open body posture with that person. Where else are you going to get that? So the human side of it, and maybe it's because I'm a history major and I minored in philosophy, I tend to look at like the human side of things. That's kind of where my forte is. And maybe part of it was me the whole time just trying to work through my social anxiety, trying to get over my speech impediment that I was suffering from earlier on, you know, in my 20s, kind of coming from a background with a little bit of trauma that I had whenever I was growing up, which you can always overcome. I want to tell everyone that. Always overcome. There's always light at the end of the tunnel with it. But that's kind of where I'm at. If anyone else had called me up and offered me the salary that John Reid and Associates offered, I would have stayed just working at the state. because I was sinking into the swamp of being comfortable there. But when John Reed reached out to me, it was like, wow, I have a chance to actually do something in the world that's positive, to affect other people out there. And I absolutely jumped at the opportunity, and I'm thankful every single day. Now I'd like to give a shout out to my beautiful, amazing, wonderful wife, Angela. Uh, she is running the
Angela.
fort. That's right. And also, Angela has an Instagram account with almost 100,000 followers on it.
Spill it.
Uh, that's right. So it's spelled BERD, nerd, NIRD. The bird nerd is what it's called.
She
And
sounds like our type
All
of
right.
people.
yeah, that's right. Really, really awesome. She's a birder out there, but she is holding down the ship of state while I'm out here just having a party and having a blast with these seminars. So, but whenever I get home, the first thing I normally do is I take out the trash, and then I will go and I empty the kitty litter. So those are normally the first two tasks that I do when I get home. And I get to be hugged by my beautiful, almost 4-year-old daughter. Runs up, wants to see her daddy.
Oh,
I have
awesome.
two. I have two stepchildren. Absolutely love them, and I have a son as well. So,
That's awesome.
beautiful, yeah, beautiful, wonderful family that loves their dad. So that's
That's
what I've
great.
got.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we got like probably like five more minutes or so. But do you have Jay? Do you have any other questions? Or I was going to ask about if he has any episodes actually recorded.
I know that he has an introduction episode with his co-host.
Yeah, I
That's
knew
right,
that.
I
but
do.
mean, like,
Jay's done his homework. I like Jay already.
Oh yeah,
Jay's the one who does the homework. I don't do the homework.
Yeah,
I told
that's
him before
right.
we got in here. I was like, well, I glanced over what you sent me. I'm winging it. So,
Don't wing
That's
it.
right,
you
that's
have
right.
you have to be on point. This is why I spent the day just doing my thing.
winging
deep
it is
dive.
me on point. Winging it is me on point.
Well, yes,
Sure.
it is. That's right. I think it was Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury really kind of started the whole trend of authors just kind of writing from their pants leg, and he said that structure, plot, and plans. And Jay, I don't know if you ever read any, or Kevin, if you could help me out. He said that it's the footprints on the beach's sand when you look behind you. Or he said, of course, he said it 10 times more eloquent
Right.
than I could ever do that. But I know Ray Bradbury said that. So, and his book Zen on the Art of Writing is absolutely great too, and incredible. It kind of helps. It kind of helped my thinking process there. So,
Okay.
Oh, that's cool. So you have one. How many are you going to have done by the time you post your first episode, October 31st?
what we are doing right now is we are banking episodes, is what we're doing. And I'll go ahead and I'll tell you our strategy for growing our podcast. I mean, it's not going to be a big secret. The very first strategy is that I'll be sharing the podcast with the students that attend my seminars. I have like a little PowerPoint slide with the QR code and stuff. So I kind of have the advantage of having a captive audience, and I saw some phones going up. The second strategy, and this is something to look into if you've started a podcast, if your download numbers are kind of a little bit lower than what you want, and I learned this myself because I have a personal podcast. It's a history podcast on the Ottoman Empire. As you can tell, I'm a history major, and I have another podcast. Spotify, you can purchase ads on Spotify for as little, I think it's like $200 or $300 a month, and they will drop that in other podcasts that rank slightly higher in terms of downloads and total listens, in shows that are similar to your show in there. I know mine have been dropped in some other history podcasts, and I saw an immediate bump in the followers that I had on my analytic tabs on Spotify. So those are the first two strategies. The second thing that we're doing is we're banking a bunch of our episodes. I have some of them saved on Riverside, which I think I need to log in. I think Riverside, I can't remember whatever package I bought for like the memory or something. Probably need to just download them.
What they do, because
Yeah.
I just recently found this out, is
Oh,
that
yeah?
once you haven't used it for a bit, they just put it on the back burner, and if you want it, you can go back and be like, hey, I need this, and they'll be like, oh, well, just hold on, we'll bring it out. And then you just got to wait like a couple hours, and then they'll email you and be like, hey, it's here now. You can come get it again. So
That's
you
the
don't
weight
lose
off of
it.
my shoulders. Okay,
Yeah,
that's the
you don't
weight off
lose
of
it.
my shoulders. I was worried that they would just kind of disappear into the ether. But so we have an introductory episode out right now. It's just it's introducing myself. It's introducing some of the concepts, why we're doing the podcast out there. And our release date is going to be Halloween of this year, October 31st. And that date is really, really important to me because that was the week where I was kind of turned loose at John Reid and Associates to start to teach my own seminars. It was Halloween of last year there, so that's when I was really kind of finally made the cut in it. So it's kind of near and dear in my heart with that. And plus, just kind of growing up, a lot of my really positive, my memories are kind of clustered around Halloween. You know, being able to dress up like Dracula, go out. You know, I was Dracula every single year, and my brother was a skeleton. So that was kind of what we were. We were growing up. It was safe and sure. I can remember my dad saying, "Man, are you boys going to dress up as anything else like that?" Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's right. So
it's tradition now.
yeah.
Now if we don't, it's weird.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Well, you know, now that I have kids, I mean, I still have a Dracula's cape. I can throw it on, and I can walk with them whenever we get candy. So,
Yep.
And honestly, some of the most happiest, well-adjusted human beings are the ones that still have that childlike humor and joy in their life. You know, as a Ray Bradbury said, he said, if someone is going to make fun of me for my playtime, I'm just going to pack up my dinosaurs and leave.
That's right.
I couldn't agree more with him. Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to say, like where they can find you and your podcast before I cut it off here?
Yeah, sure. So we have a link tree. I don't know if this will be in your show notes or not, but if you just go to Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify right now, and wherever else, I know there's like 5 additional places where you can find us at. If you type in Reid on the Record, that's REID on the Record, you should be able to find us, is what you should be able to do. So
I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email. The email is on our link tree as well. Critics are welcome. We love the critics of interviews in general. If you're a critic of the Reid technique, if you'd like to come onto our podcast and talk about it, we're friendly. You know, we do it in the spirit of charity. We just want to talk to everyone is what we want to do. Just kind of get the word out there. So.
All right. Well.
All right. Cool.
You got anything else to say, Jerry?
No, I'm just happy that we had somebody outside of our normal spectrum.
Yeah. Normally we just stick with nerd stuff and then we talk nerd shit. And
I love the nerd stuff.
Yeah.
I love the nerd stuff. Yeah.
This is way out of our spectrum, and I enjoy that. Like we had a self-help author on here too.
Okay, cool.
That was fun. it's like breaking out of our wheelhouse.
Yes, it is. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Frank, for coming on. I appreciate it. Feel free to come back and we can talk about nerd stuff at some point.
Of course. Yeah. If you ever want to nerd out about StarCraft, Total Annihilation, Dungeon Keeper, some of the old school RTS games. Especially me and my younger brother, we know a whole lot. Now, I kind of got out of gaming after StarCraft 2 came out. I really haven't been too much in it. But I'm kind of frozen in time. On my MacBook Pro, I have GOG and I have Steam on there. I'm running all of my old favorites on there is what I'm doing.
You know what?
If you want to nerd out on something like that, we can do that.
I have a rule. If it makes you happy and it doesn't hurt anybody else, who cares?
100%. Oh, also, anything H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft board games, card games, and stuff. If you want to nerd out, I've got your back on that. Cthulhu, that's right. Yes. Let us retreat into the comfort and safety of the new Dark Ages. Let's do it. That's it. Well, peace out. Peace. That's it, brother. Coming. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Gracious host, you have a good one. Thank you.
All right now.